1. ESB Director Selection Commission. No review of Tsyvinsky's candidacy. 2. Bureau of Economic Security Director Selection. What you need to know. 3. Ukraine's anti-corruption struggle. Government rejects key investigator. 4. Ukraine's Economic Crimes Bureau. A crisis in leadership amid corruption challenges. 1. ESB Director Selection Commission. No review of Tsyvinsky's candidacy. The commission responsible for selecting the head of the Economic Security Bureau (ESB) is set to return a letter to the government on Monday, July 14. This letter will include relevant documents and a cover note signed by Laura Stefan, the head of the commission, indicating that they will not be reconsidering the candidacy of Oleksandr Tsyvinsky, who was previously selected for the position. Stefan expressed her belief that the commission has successfully completed its responsibilities. She stated, "We have fulfilled our obligations, adhered to all legal requirements, established the competition process, announced the competition, gathered necessary documents, and accepted candidates who met the established criteria. We also conducted various assessments and practical tasks." She further noted that a thorough special check was performed, yielding positive results for all candidates involved. Importantly, she pointed out that the legislation governing the ESB does not allow for any alternative decisions to be made once a candidate has been selected. This means that the commission cannot revert to any earlier stages of the selection process. Stefan clarified that when the final decision was reached, the commission was already aware of the letter from the Security Service of Ukraine (SBU) regarding Tsyvinsky's father's Russian passport. This information had been publicly available since early 2023, when Tsyvinsky participated in the competition for the director position at the National Anti-Corruption Bureau (NABU). She emphasized, "The candidate has over 20 years of experience in various roles, and to our knowledge he has access to state secrets. I want to reiterate that all 16 finalists, including the competition winner, successfully passed a special check in May 2020, and those results have never been contested or revoked." During a meeting on Monday, all 6 members of the commission unanimously agreed to return the letter and accompanying documents to the cabinet. They also decided against declassifying the SBU letter concerning Tsyvinsky, stating that it is the candidate's responsibility to reach out to the agency for any information. As previously reported on July 7, the cabinet reviewed the submission from the ESB Director Selection Commission and requested that it resubmit no more than 2 candidates who meet all the established criteria, including security requirements. 2. Bureau of Economic Security Director Selection. What you need to know. The selection committee responsible for appointing the director of the Bureau of Economic Security (BES) has made a definitive decision regarding the candidacy of the competition winner, and they will not be revisiting this choice. This announcement was made during a meeting held on July 14, where committee members expressed their stance clearly. Donatas Malaskevicius, a member of the commission, stated, "The commission's task has been completed, and the decision we reached remains valid. We lack the authority to make any further decisions. I believe we cannot revert to earlier stages of the competition or suggest a new candidate. I recommend returning this set of documents so that the appropriate authorities can make a decision in accordance with the relevant laws that govern this process." He further clarified that the letter received from the Security Service of Ukraine (SBU) regarding the competition winner, Oleksandr Tsyvinsky, did not introduce any new information. Essentially, all the details in the SBU's correspondence were already considered by the commission when we made our decision, he added. Laura Stefan, the head of the commission, echoed this sentiment, stating, "In my view, the commission has accomplished its objective. We have fulfilled all legal requirements, established the competition's procedures, announced the competition, gathered the necessary documents, and admitted candidates who met the established criteria. We conducted various assessments and practical tasks." She also announced that the documents sent by the government requesting new candidacies would be returned to the Cabinet of Ministers without any new decisions being made. To provide some context, on June 20, 2024, the Verkhovna Rada passed a bill aimed at restructuring the BS. This legislation mandates the recertification of employees and stipulates that international partners will play a crucial role in the selection and recertification processes. According to the law, the new head of the BS is to be chosen by a 6-member commission, half of whom are international experts with the authority to cast a decisive vote. The reboot of the Bureau of Economic Security is a critical requirement for Ukraine in order to access the International Monetary Fund, IMF, Extended Fund Facility, and it is also linked to support from the European Union. At the end of June, Oleksandr Tsyvinsky, a detective from the National Anti-Corruption Bureau, NABU, emerged as the winner of the competition for the BS director position. His candidacy was submitted to the government for consideration on June 30th. However, on July 7th, it was revealed that the government did not approve Tsyvinsky for the director role and requested the commission to resubmit the candidacy. Tsyvinsky has expressed that it is a matter of principle for him to understand the security assessments that led to the authorities' decision. He emphasized that as a law enforcement officer, he has successfully passed all SBU evaluations over the past decade and has also served in the main intelligence directorate, GUR, of the Ministry of Defense since the onset of the full-scale invasion. This situation raises important questions about the transparency and criteria used in the selection process. What do you think about the committee's decision? Do you believe that the government should have reconsidered Tsyvinsky's candidacy? Share your thoughts in the comments. 3. Ukraine's anti-corruption struggle. Government rejects key investigator. The Ukrainian government is currently facing significant backlash for its refusal to appoint an anti-corruption investigator to a crucial position, leaving the nation's agency responsible for tackling economic crime without a leader. This situation arose after the government dismissed a highly qualified candidate, Oleksandr Tsyvinsky, who was nominated through an independent selection process. The government's rationale for this rejection was based on concerns regarding Tsyvinsky's familial connections to Russia. During a meeting held on July 14th, which was streamed online, members of the Selection Commission, comprising both Ukrainian and international representatives, rejected the government's objections. They reaffirmed their decision to nominate Tsyvinsky to head the Bureau of Economic Security, BS. Tsyvinsky, who has extensive experience with the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine, received unanimous support from the 3 international members of the commission. In contrast, the Ukrainian delegates opposed his nomination, but their objections were overruled by the international members, in accordance with the commission's established rules. The commission members emphasized during the live-streamed meeting that the selection process was conducted in a lawful manner. They confirmed that Tsyvinsky remained the official nominee and pointed out that the government's rejection on July 8 was not based on any new evidence that had not already been considered by the panel. The government had referenced a letter from the Security Service of Ukraine (SBU), which claimed that Tsyvinsky's father possessed a Russian passport. However, Laura Stefan, the chair of the Selection Commission, clarified that the information contained in the SBU letter had already been discussed and was not a valid reason for rejection. Everything in the SBU letter was known to us beforehand, Stefan stated during the meeting. It contained no new grounds for rejection. According to Ukrainian law, the government is required to appoint the candidate put forward by the Selection Commission within 10 days. A legal analysis conducted by the team of opposition parliamentarian Yaroslav Zelezniak, who played a role in drafting the legislation that governs the selection of BES leaders, indicates that there is no legal framework allowing the government to reject a properly nominated candidate. As of the time of publication, the government had not provided any comments regarding this issue. Reports suggest that members of Ukraine's business community have expressed their dissatisfaction with the government's failure to appoint Tsyvinsky. Anastasia Radina, a member of the ruling party and a member of Parliament's Anti-Corruption Committee, highlighted the legal limitations on the government's authority to reject the nomination. In a statement shared on Facebook, she asserted, "The Cabinet of Ministers has no authority to question the decision of the Selection Commission, or to request additional candidates just because the winner doesn't suit them." Zelezniak has called on the international community to exert pressure on Ukraine's government to adhere to the law and appoint Tsyvinsky. He pointed out that major global entities such as the Group of 7 G7, the International Monetary Fund (IMF), and the European Union (EU) have remained silent regarding Ukraine's failure to implement promised legal and customs reforms, despite receiving economic assistance. He remarked, "The next step was the Economic Security Bureau when the government openly said that no guys, we receive money, we have approved the law, but we're not going to follow it because we don't want to reform and stop corruption." Zelezniak further noted, "Once again, there was not strong feedback from G7 or IMF or EU. This situation raises critical questions about the integrity of Ukraine's commitment to anti-corruption measures and the role of international oversight." What do you think? Should the international community take a stronger stance on this issue? We invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. 4. Ukraine's Economic Crimes Bureau, a crisis in leadership amid corruption challenges. Ukraine currently finds itself in a precarious situation where its Economic Crimes Bureau lacks a leader. And this vacancy underscores serious doubts about the government's dedication to combating corruption as well as fulfilling its international obligations. But here's where it gets controversial. The Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine recently dismissed a nominee selected by an independent commission to head the Bureau of Economic Security. This decision has been met with fierce backlash from lawmakers, activists, and various business sectors, who claim the rejection was not only unlawful but also laden with political motivation. This dismissal drew attention during a public meeting held online on July 14, where the commission reaffirmed its original candidate despite the government's controversial interference. The Bureau of Economic Security, which was established in 2021 with the explicit purpose of investigating economic crimes, has come under scrutiny for purportedly being utilized as a tool to exert pressure and, in some instances, extort businesses. As a result, there are increasing calls from various quarters for its reform. On June 30, in an effort to reform the Bureau, the Commission, comprising members both domestically and internationally, nominated Oleksandr Tsyvinsky, a noted anti-corruption investigator, for the leadership role. While the 3 Ukrainian delegates expressed their disapproval of Tsyvinsky's nomination, their objections were overridden when the 3 international members voted unanimously in favor of him. However, the Ukrainian government chose to reject the proposed candidate, pointing to alleged ties between Tsyvinsky and Russia, as indicated in a letter received from Ukraine's security services. They then requested that the commission present them with 2 additional candidates, which has raised further eyebrows. It is critical to note that appointing a new director for this bureau is not just a procedural necessity, it is a responsibility Ukraine has committed to as part of its agreements with the European Union and the International Monetary Fund, IMF, for receiving international aid in the wake of the ongoing war. Under the law that established the Bureau of Economic Security, the government is obligated to appoint a candidate recommended by the Commission within 10 days. Furthermore, a legal analysis conducted by opposition legislator Yaroslav Zelezniak, who was instrumental in drafting the law that governs the selection process for the Bureau's leadership, confirms that there is no legal basis to reject a duly nominated candidate who has been properly vetted and recommended. And this is the part most people miss. The absence of a strong international response appears to empower Ukrainian officials to backtrack on major commitments related to reforms. There are already indications of stagnation in judicial and customs reforms. Alongside the ongoing controversies surrounding the Bureau of Economic Security and the unjustified criminal charges against prominent anti-corruption activist Vitaly Shabunin, as highlighted by Zelezniak, the situation is bound to deteriorate further. I believe the next inevitable step will be an assault on anti-corruption bodies, he asserted during an interview with the Kyiv Independent. Interestingly, Zelezniak pointed out that Ukraine's international allies, including members of the Group of 7, G7, the EU, and financial institutions like the IMF, have remained largely quiet concerning these critical issues. Their silence is striking. There hasn't been any significant feedback from the G7 or the IMF, and the EU has also chosen a very cautious approach when it comes to offering criticism. Nobody is raising these issues, which is quite concerning, Zelezniak noted. He elaborated, mentioning that the current U.S. administration seems to be more focused on other global issues, particularly in the Middle East and its ongoing relations with China, which diminishes the urgency around the war between Ukraine and Russia. In explaining the government's rationale for rejecting Tsyvinsky, officials cited security worries stemming from his estranged father's residency in Russia and possession of a Russian passport. However, it's important to point out that Tsyvinsky has a significant track record of exposing illegal land seizures in Kyiv and has held clearance for state secrets. With nearly 2 decades of experience in law enforcement, including almost 10 years with the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine, NABU, his credentials speak for themselves. During the commission's meeting, a member explained that the information regarding Tsyvinsky's father has been public knowledge for quite some time, casting doubt on the government's last-minute concerns about his candidacy. All the details mentioned in the security services correspondence were already considered during our decision-making process, stated Donatas Malaskevicius, a member of the commission, during the July session. Interestingly, Tsyvinsky himself has revealed that he has not been in contact with his father for a decade now. At the conclusion of the Commission's July 14 meeting, the members unanimously agreed to reject the government's call for a repeat vote and returned its communication without submitting a new candidate. We have fulfilled our mandate. Our work is complete. We have followed all legal steps, and we see no reason to step back in the competition for the position of Bureau Head, stated Laura Stefan, chair of the Selection Commission. They reiterated that they would not resubmit a candidate in order to adhere to the legal frameworks governing their decisions and processes. Food for thought *. As Ukraine continues its struggle for democracy amid the chaos of war, it faces the critical challenge of not repeating the authoritarian traits of its neighbor, Russia. Recent events raise alarm regarding whether democratic institutions are being undermined. For example, the ongoing investigation against Vitaly Shabunin, a sterling figure in the fight against corruption, signals a worrying trend. What are your thoughts? Do you see parallels between Ukraine's situation and that of its historically authoritarian neighbor? Are we witnessing a backslide into authoritarianism? We'd love to hear your opinions in the comments.